In World War I, Winston Churchill was just an officer. One evening, he was called from his tent to go see his superior and began the hour-long walk to headquarters. Upon his arrival, he found out he was never sent for and was forced to begin his hour-long journey back. This is the early 1900s, in the middle of a war. So Churchill wasn't offered tea or an apology, just sent back to his quarters, walking back through muddy trenches. I'm sure he wasn't pleased. But when he got back to his own tent, he found that it no longer existed. It had been blown up by an enemy explosive while he was gone. If he had been inside, which he would have been had he not been mistakenly called for, he surely would have been killed. From that point on, he sort of just trusted that things worked out the way they're meant to. During World War II, he was flying in some very questionable aircraft that his colleagues had died in, and wasn't worried. He would be standing on buildings that were being attacked, never worried too much about getting killed, as he knew the universe had a grand plan for him, and he was just following his destiny. Last November, I traveled to Cancun to meet my old therapist for lunch. Cancun is my old stomping grounds and had an ex-girlfriend from there. We ended on bad terms, where we just had a fight and then didn't talk for nearly 2 years, but she was still on my mind. As I was eating, I was thinking about this girl and thinking how strange it was that there was no closure in our relationship. There was no big goodbye, there was no anything really. It just kind of ended. That's it. Never spoke again. I thought there would be more drama to it, but it just kind of ended. I guess life isn't dramatic like a movie. Things just happen randomly, and that's all it is. And then she walked by. I hadn't seen her in years, and she walked by right as I was thinking about her. I pointed her out to my therapist, who had heard a lot about her. She was quite a topic of discussion for us. But he said he would watch my stuff as I went and said hi to her. She was just walking away as I tapped her on the shoulder and said hi. She just looked at me confused for a little bit, and then she embraced me, gave me a gigantic hug. And this is super weird because I hadn't been to Cancun for months at this point. I live like an hour away from Cancun. Well, right now I live in Valencia, Tio. But normally I live in Playa del Carmen in Mexico, and I hadn't been in Cancun for 4 months at least. I was just coming to meet someone for lunch. And she was saying, oh, it's strange because I usually get a ride home from my friend's dad, and he couldn't pick me up, so I had to this is one of the only times I'm coming through this area. And so everything kind of just came together perfectly at this exact moment where the odds of it happening are so slim, but it happens nonetheless. It didn't work out in the end. We had about 6 months together where we rekindled something very special that I'll cherish forever in my life, but she's gone now. But I feel like this was my Churchill moment. This was the universe showing me, hey, we got you. You don't have to force anything. You don't have to sit there stressing. You can just let things happen as they happen, and we'll take care of the rest. And just know that it's all for the good of the logos or the universe, the world, whatever it is. This is something I've recognized in many biographies. Viktor Frankl, for example, stopped trying to calculate what would keep him alive in Auschwitz and simply surrendered to whatever happened. Some things that people were selected for that looked like a way out, that Victor wasn't, turned out to be bad for those who went, while he managed to survive. During his time in Auschwitz, he became very spiritual and just went with the flow. Whatever happened is what happened. If you've not had your moment like that yet, you can use these examples as kindling. Or maybe you want to look back on your life and see how things worked out exactly the way they were meant to. You'll see that if you adopt this philosophy, that it is true, that you don't need to stress, as the universe has you. As Miyamoto Musashi wrote, do not attempt to oppose the way of the universe, but first, make sure you know the way of the universe.